What's up, YouTube? It's the Action Figure Grader coming back to you with another look at the Power of the Force 2 line that ran from about 1995 to 2000. I've got some recent sales here, and then also at the end of the video, I've got some items still for sale, at least as of the making of this video, that you may want to consider, and I included in the video description eBay affiliate links in case you want to support the channel at no cost to you to either make an offer or buy it outright. So there just wasn't enough kind of data or interesting sales out there that I thought could support a full video. So I thought, well, why don't we go ahead and take a look on eBay to see what else is out there for sale right now and show those as well. So it's kind of a 2-for-1 here, a little hybrid video, if you will. So let's go ahead and take a look at some recent sales. I thought this was kind of a cool one. I hadn't seen this before, and I didn't even know they offered this, but apparently there were Kenner/Hasbro freeze frame action slide holders that you could buy. And if you bought the freeze frame action slide figures in stores, you could take out the freeze frames and put them in this kind of collecting bin or collecting sheets, if you will. So somebody was selling a bunch of them, and there were also some Power of the Force freeze frames included. I just love those freeze frames. There's something about those that I always enjoyed looking at mint on cards, where it had the hole through the card back, and you could see as it's displayed next to the figure the awesome images that were included in these little slides. So this seller had some sheets available as well as some freeze frame action slides, and those sold for 80 bucks. So kind of an instant collection of freeze frame action slides for those that are into that kind of thing. Here is that Retooled Shadows Darth Vader, and this is kind of a tough one to track down. I've talked about it in past Power of the Force 2 market updates, and apparently there was a 2-pack with Prince Xizor and Darth Vader in like a 2-pack that came with a comic inside, and inside that Vader that was included was a kind of a different tooling to the sculpt. It was particularly noticeable on the cape, and the cape kind of curls out like that and goes underneath the lightsaber on these single carded figures. So they took some of these figures that were in that 2-pack and repackaged them on this card back. I think they were in JCPenney. They were only in JCPenney's stores. So tough to find this one, but this is that Retooled Shadows, and you can always spot it because that cape curls down inside the blister underneath the lightsaber. And this one was listed for $140. It sold for $110. High grade examples can set you back $175 or maybe even $200, depending on the auction and who's looking at that time. But that's just kind of a cool variant for the Power of the Force 2 Darth Vader that I've talked about in past videos. This is another rare one, again, that I've talked about in past videos. This is the US card freeze frame action slide Weekway. This was a very short-packed, low-production number figure, and a lot of people really covet this one because it's probably the rarest of all the freeze frames. And this Weekway is on it's only on the US card that it's pretty rare, but the Canadian example is also pretty pricey. But the US card in particular is the pricey one. And it's come back down to earth here lately, probably because the people that collect the Power of the Force 2 line probably already have one. And if you don't, then you don't know about it and you don't care about it. But this one sold for $180 in an auction. It did have a Walmart price sticker on it. A little bit of edge wear to it. Not perfect by any means. But still, even in the condition it's in, which is not bad, but, you know, it's not perfect, it still sold for $180. These were going right at the height of the Power of the Force 2 freeze frame action slides as they were being released in retail. They were going for a lot of money, apparently. Somebody was telling me that in catalogs at the time, these were for sale for insane money because people were trying to be completionists and collect all of them, and nobody could find the freeze frame action slide Weekway. So even back then, people knew that this was a very rare one and hard to track down and had low production numbers, low counts inside the boxes of sealed Kenner/Hasbro cases. So this is definitely a rare one, and for whatever reason, it's not commanding the prices that it was even probably 5 years ago. It was more like $300, but that's what it is. Here's another example. This one was listed for $200. This, again, is the US version. This one did have some edge wear and a little crease by the hang tab, a little, maybe even a little tear there. So that one sold in a best offer accepted of $100. So it was not
nearly pristine. This is like a 75 grade at best with that tear by the hang tab. But just given the condition of it, it wasn't a tear. It looks like it's just a bend in the plastic piece that goes over top of it. There's like a translucent plastic piece that goes over the hang tab. It looks like it's just bent. But if you look at the back of the card, there's no tear there that I can see. Maybe just a slight crease. But again, this is probably maybe what, like an 80 grade condition. And so it wasn't perfect versus this one that was in much better shape and still not perfect, but still in better shape than this one. So again, that one sold for $180 in an auction. This one sold in a make an offer situation for $100. Next up is another one that's not as rare as the Weekway, but another freeze frame action slide that's pretty desirable, and that's the Sand Trooper. I had this one at one point in very high grade, AFA graded. This one only sold for $60 though, so it's not nearly as bad as the Weekway, but still a little bit more desirable than some of the others out there. The freeze frame Boba Fett is another one that is pretty sought after, but the Sand Trooper is kind of like the next rung down, along with probably the AT-ST driver and a few others like that. So that one sold for $60 in a buy it now situation. I got a few variations for Boba Fett that sold. This was kind of an interesting one, and we all talk about the different errors for the Power of the Force 2 Boba Fett. There's the standard circles on hands. There is the half circles on hands, which is probably the second most common, but still very desirable. And then you had this one where there's no circle on one hand, and then the other hand, I guess, had a full circle. So it just missed the paint job on that one. You can see the plastic kind of molding for where the circle's supposed to go, but this one missed it. So it's kind of considered a rarity. There's also some that are missing the shoulder emblem, that little Mandalorian shoulder emblem of the skull. There's others that are missing some of the paint apps and the emblem on the front of the chest. There's like unpainted rockets. There are unpainted other this and that and the other. So unpainted like waist, the utility belts. I mean, all kinds of different variations for it. I've seen unpainted feet for Boba Fett. But this one's a pretty desirable one, and it did sell in an auction. Only one bid for $99, which is actually pretty reasonable given what these can sometimes go for. It did have some edge wear to it, so it wasn't a perfect card by any means, but this was a U.S. Green Card Collection 3 Boba Fett with no circle on one hand and a full circle on the other. Here was a full circles version, and you can see AFA labeled this Full Circles Boba Fett AFA 85. That one sold for $91 in an auction, already graded, so that's a pretty decent deal there given what it costs to grade these. Here was a CAS graded example, and we're going to talk more about the Signature Series line that CAS offers when I go to the items that are still for sale right now. Lots of autographed items are on the market right now, and they're ungraded. It would be perfect to send them into CAS. I did this a number of times with some of my other Power of the Force 2 items that I used to have in my collection. The Power of the Force 2 line, as I've talked about, they make great items to take to conventions to get various actors or, stunt doubles or, voice actors, things like that, to get them to sign it because they're inexpensive to buy the mint on card ungraded. Then you take them in to get them signed, and you can submit them to CAS for their Yellow Label Signature Series. And what they do is they grade the actual item, so you got to pay the cost there. And then you also have to pay for the James Spence authentication service for the autograph. And that costs probably, I can't remember the price. I haven't looked it up lately on CAS's website, but I think it's like $35 or so, $40. And so that's an additional cost. So it costs about, let's call it about $100 or so to get the item graded for this Signature Series kind of label. And you get a certificate of authenticity showing the actual item graded, and then you also receive a letter of authenticity from James Spence Authentication. It's a really nice zoom in of the actual autograph, and it says, based on our research, this is a actual autograph of Jeremy Bulloch signing a Boba Fett. So it's just kind of a nice thing to do if you're into Power of the Force autographs and things like that. You can preserve it and grade it, and it comes back in like a yellow label. And here it is here. You can see the yellow label there. This one had a yellowed blister. It was graded 80, card 80, blister 80, figure 85, and Jeremy Bulloch signed. And it's got the James Spence authentication number, yellow label on there. So pretty cool item. I don't know if I would have done it with a yellow label or a yellow blister Power of the Force 2 item, I would probably pony up and pay the $20 for a clear blister example, but maybe this person who submitted it originally, this all they had on hand and they didn't have any others. So, and that's fine, whatever. But it still sold for $227.50. So interesting sale there. But that's an idea for some of the items that are still for sale right now that I'm going to show you in a little bit that you may want to check out and consider sending to CAS to get their signature series labels on it. Here was a cool one. This was an AFA 85 Luke Skywalker Jedi Knight, and this is the variant. This is the brown vest. Most of them have the black vest, but this is a variant that's pretty sought after, and it's got kind of like a brown finish to it. I don't know if it was a factory error or just kind of a weird, factory change, that running change that they did. But in general, the brown vest is more coveted, and they're in lesser numbers than the black vest version of the Luke Skywalker Jedi Knight. So if you happen to see one of these ungraded, that's a good one to pick up. And you can pick them up sometimes for pretty cheap. But this one sold, it was an AFA 85. It says brown vest protruding. I don't know what the protruding refers to, but, that's just how they label it. And AFA 85, card 85, blister 85, figure 90. But again, if you see one of these for sale on eBay ungraded, oftentimes you can pick them up for $25-$30. Especially if the seller doesn't know what it is. They might not know that it's a rarity. So be on the lookout for that one if you're into the Power of the Force 2 line. I never did pick one of these up when I was still collecting Power of the Force 2. It just never came up when I happened to be looking. But obviously the market says that it's worth a lot of money because it sold for $192 in a buy it now situation. Another one that you want to keep an eye out for is the Tuskin Raider or Sand People. There's a variation or a factory error, and if you look at his right hand there, the paint and the mold goes all the way through to where it's a closed hand. You can't put a weapon inside that. You got one hand for the gaffy stick, and I assume it's talking about this hand, not this hand, but it could be this hand that's actually fully closed. I don't know. But it's an error for the Tuskin Raider where the hands are fully closed, and you can't really put the gaffy stick inside his hand. And so it's labeled as such on the AFA label, closed hand, Tuskin Raider closed hand. It might be referring to actually the left hand that is fully sealed. The mold is actually fully sealed, and you can't open it to put in the gaffy stick. I don't know for sure. But this hand also looks completely closed off too. So just keep an eye out. Maybe check the checklists online for the Power of the Force 2 line to see which hand they're referring to. But if you happen, again, this is another one to keep an eye out for because it's pretty desirable. This one was graded AFA 80+, and it was listed for $135, and the best offer accepted on that was $115. So even an AFA 80+ archival case, it still sold for $115. But I bet you can find this one ungraded for like $20, $25 if you keep an eye out for it. Next up, this was a very high grade Gendan Spy, and this one was a freeze frame action slide graded AFA 95. So anything 95 grade, it doesn't really matter what it is. It's going to have some value to it because it's really difficult to get a 95 grade with anything with AFA. And so this was an old label 95 before they started having subgrades for it, but very interesting item and high grade. And this was back when AFA used to have like a sticker that they put on the top of the acrylic case, letting everyone know that it was an AFA 95 gold level. But they don't do that anymore, but it's still a gold level AFA example of the Gendan Spy on the freeze frame action slide. And that one did sell for $125 plus $10 shipping. Next up, I'm surprised that this one sold for the price it did. I mean, I'm assuming it's a legitimate sale. I did check it against 130point.com, and it said it was a legit sale. But this was only a CAS 75, but it is, in all fairness, a very desirable variant for the Luke Skywalker Farm Boy. This is where the short saber was packed inside the long tray. And you can see it right here. These were common for Luke Skywalker, Luke X-Wing, Luke Dagobah, and also Darth Vader. There are also apparently very rare examples of Obi-Wan Kenobi with the short saber packed inside the long tray. And what that means is that you can see the long inner holder was for the first original issue saber. And they started packing in these shorter sabers, but still used the leftover inner trays that were originally designed for the longer lightsabers. But it was only graded a CAS 75, and it was listed for $640. Now, it says it sold for that, but I was like, no, because it was actually a lower price. I don't know why it shows as sold for $640. It did not sell for $640, but it still sold for $500. So that's a big number. The tri-logo European version of the short saber long tray Luke Skywalker Farm Boy is not as desirable as the US card. The US card is the more desirable one. I had the tri-logo version of this, and I think mine was graded AFA 85 or 85 plus, and I only paid at the time, which was a lot of money. It was like $250 or $300 for it. So I don't know why somebody paid $500 for an AFA, or excuse me, a CAS 75, but that's what somebody paid apparently. I wouldn't pay that though. I would try to stick into that 200 to 250 range for a higher grade example. Now for the US card, that's a different story. Usually those go for 300 to 350 all day long, if not even a little bit higher, depending on how bad you want it. But nowadays, it doesn't seem like there's that big of a collecting community for the Power of the Force 2 line. And I say that knowing that there is a very vibrant group on Facebook, several different groups actually on Facebook, very active with lots of members. So I'm not trying to insult you guys. I'm just saying that for the average collector that likes to pick up some of these Power of the Force 2 here and there, they're probably not even aware of the short saber long tray Luke Farm Boy or some of those kind of more esoteric variants, but they are very desirable among hardcore Power of the Force 2 collectors. Next up, this was a fantastic deal, a really, really good deal. This was a prototype, unpainted, test shot Luke Skywalker for the Luke Hoth. And this is the one that was, I think, packed in with the Tauntaun. So he's got kind of the wider leg stance with the bend at the legs. And it was unpainted, first shot prototype. And it had no markings on the back of the leg. Let's see on the bottom of the feet if they showed that. They didn't show it on the bottom of the feet, but this was definitely a first shot prototype Luke Hoth, Power of the Force 2, and it only sold for $168.50. Quite honestly, if I had seen this, I would have been very tempted because I do have a few Power of the Force 2 prototypes that are loose graded by CAS, and it would have looked really nice with my collection of Bosk and a few others that I have in my collection. I didn't see it, but $168.50 is a really good deal. Most first shot prototypes that are unpainted like this, especially if they don't have any date stamps on the bottom of the feet, those are considered earlier stage prototypes and more desirable than ones that actually have the date stamps on the bottom of the feet. But they're always desirable when they're unpainted like this. So I would have loved to have grabbed that at that price, but usually they sell kind of like $250 to $350, sometimes a lot higher depending on which character it is. But $168.50 was a bargain. I wish I had seen that. Now let's go to some autographed items that sold. First is a green card R2-D2 signed by Kenny Baker. That one sold for $103.50. And there was another one that was on the red card that was sold by Kenny Baker. This was a Toy Expo exclusive that had Kenny Baker's face on it. And you see that a lot with Jeremy Bulloch. There's some kind of convention exclusives, Philly Toy Expo and Japanese Toy Expos that had Jeremy Bulloch's face on it. This is one with R2-D2 for a Toy Expo. That one sold for $200, just given its rarity, probably low production numbers. All they did was take a standard US card, most likely, and slap on this sticker, but it's still very desirable. Here are some items that are still for sale. So if you have a desire to pick up any of these items, here are some items still for sale. You can use the eBay affiliate links in the video description, and it does help out the channel at no cost to you. But this, going back to the Weekway freeze frame, this is the Canadian example, and it's in very, very good condition. And it's a make an offer situation. I don't know if I'd pay $170 for it, but I think I'd probably pay $125 to $150 pretty easily. It's not as desirable as the US freeze frame action slide Weekway, but this is still a very desirable one. And I could see this one going for a pretty good amount of money, just given the condition of it. It's in really great shape, clear blister, very, very clean, and I think it would grade very highly. So that one's listed again for $170, but it is a make an offer situation, so you can make a lower offer than that. Here is a Showtime exclusive Ben Kenobi, and they have this red Showtime sticker on the front. These are very desirable among Power of the Force 2 collectors because these were given out, I believe, to Showtime employees when the re-releases for the Star Wars films were coming to Showtime. That's what I've heard anyway. So it's got this red sticker on there that says exclusively on Showtime, and this is for Ben Kenobi. These go for a lot of money, usually. This one's listed for $200 in a make an offer situation, and there's 10 watchers on this one. So that's a very desirable one, and it's also in very good shape. Next up, I got some autographs. This one is a green card Paul Blake Greedo signed, and this one's very nice. It's only $58.64, and it's a make an offer situation. So that's a really good deal there for a Paul Blake signed Greedo, and he obviously played Greedo in the original New Hope film, along with Maria, I forgot her last name, but there was 2 different actors. Paul Blake's kind of the best known, but there's another actress named Maria that was also used for some of the close-up shots, like when Greedo was talking to Han Solo on the very famous cantina scene. So, but anyway, Paul Blake signed, that's $58.64. You can't beat that price. Really good deal there. And then here is a Prune Face signed by Hugh Spite. I guess he was the actor that played Prune Face. This one does have a Dallas Vintage Toys sticker on it. You can probably get that taken off with some lighter fluid. But that one's already authenticated by James Spence Authentication. So you don't, if you decided to send this in to Collector Archive Services for their Yellow Label Signature Series, you don't have to pay the fee again. Just send in this little certificate number with the actual item, and CAS will grade the item, use the Signature Series yellow label, and you don't have to repay the JSA fee that they usually charge. And then they'll send you back the authentication certificate along with the graded Prune Face. That one's listed for $150, so not a bad deal there. Next up is a John Morton signed Boba Fett. He played Boba Fett in some of the Bespin scenes on The Empire Strikes Back. So that one is signed, and it says John Morton, Bespin Boba. That's in really good shape. Red card, Boba Fett. It looks like it's the full circle variations for Boba Fett inside the blister. That one also is listed for $150. Here's one that's already been graded by CAS. This one is a CAS 85 Plus Bib Fortuna, signed by Michael Carter. That one is a make an offer situation, and that one's listed for $175. Given that it costs you $100 or so to get it graded with CAS, you're really only paying about $75 for the autograph and the item. So not a bad deal on that Bib Fortuna, signed by Michael Carter, the actor who played Bib Fortuna, and it's a make an offer situation. So check that one out if you're interested. And then finally, we've got a Weekway Green Card Collection 3 signed by Dicky Beer. He's got a pretty well-known autograph, and this one also has already been authenticated by James Spence Authentication. I like the color that they used for the signature on the blister. That green really pops with the Green Card Collection 3 card for Weekway with the foil logo. So that one's also listed for $150. Dicky Beer was a stuntman who did a lot of the stunts for the Return of the Jedi scene on Tatooine. He did scenes for Weekway, probably when he was thrown into the Sarlacc pit by Lando, I believe. And then also he did some of the stunts for Boba Fett as well. So he's a pretty famous stunt double for the Return of the Jedi film. And I thought that was a really nice item. I just love the color of the autograph. That to me, that really makes autographed items, is what color they sign it in. And this one really pops to me. So again, that one's listed for $150. So if you have an interest in any of those items, those are listed in the video description, and you can use those links to buy them, and it'll help out the channel at no cost to you. I hope you enjoyed this look at Power of the Force 2 items that both sold as well as are for sale on eBay. Thanks as always for watching, and I'll be back soon.